Today we're going to return to our I Have a Question segment where we're talking about spiritual gifts. And I want to thank the person who gave me this particular question about how the spiritual gifts function and what we should know about spiritual gifts. It's really a multitude of questions with a multitude of answers, and that's why we continue to have more than one video to try to provide an answer that will be satisfactory to what the person asked. Up to this point, we have done 2 prior videos. I hope you've had an opportunity to see those. Just as a quick reminder of what those 2 videos emphasized, one of those emphasized the common good. One of the things that we're learning as we dive into this topic of spiritual gifts is that God really gave the spiritual gifts to the church for the common good. Many times we often get this impression in our minds that the spiritual gifts are for us, or they're for our benefit, or we're to use them selfishly. And I think that's sometimes promoted through various faiths, and they emphasize this gift is for you. And I'm not saying that those gifts aren't for us personally, but the greater emphasis in the New Testament is that spiritual gifts have been given for the common good. The second video that we did gave us an opportunity to flesh out what the common good means. And what we decided last time is the common good is always going to build the kingdom of God, and that's going to be rooted in the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ and the gospel. But then as we're using our gifts for the kingdom enrichment, we're going to sometimes share the gospel with the lost. Sometimes we're going to be using those spiritual gifts within the context of the local church. And then sometimes we're building God's kingdom by just bringing the light of Jesus Christ into a dark world. And that's where we stopped last time. Now, to this point, if you've been watching these videos, you probably have realized that we've not talked about the gifts individually. And I don't think we have enough time in any video to go through each one individually, but I did want to show you the list. We have 2 lists in the New Testament. One of those is found in Romans chapter 12. The list in Romans chapter 12 includes prophecy, service, teaching, exhorting, giving, leading, and mercy. And then our second list is found in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, and it includes wisdom, knowledge, faith, healing, miracles, prophecy, discernment, tongues, and interpretation of tongues. What I would like to suggest to you as we think about these 2 wonderful lists that have been given to us, both in Romans chapter 12 and in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, is that some of the gifts are going to really be used to make God's name known in a place where it is not currently known. For example, the gift of healing, miracles, and tongues more than likely may be more demonstrative or may be seen in a broader way in the context where the Bible is not readily available. Maybe the concentration of the people who live in that area are more lost. They don't know Jesus. And so God uses the spiritual gifts of healing, miracles, and tongues to make His name known, to draw attention to the gospel message, which again is going to lead us to the lost. We see some of that in 1 Corinthians chapter 14. Let me read for you just a little bit in verse 22. Here's what it says. Speaking in other tongues then is intended as a sign, not for believers, but for unbelievers. So it looks like to me that some of the spiritual gifts are really going to highlight who God is, His power, His nature, His love, the gospel of Jesus Christ, again, to reach the lost. But for the most part, most of these gifts in Romans chapter 12 and in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, they're going to be for the building up of the church and to bring the kingdom of God, the light, into the darkness. And so I wanted you to keep those things in mind as we continue to study the spiritual gifts. Some may be used and more visible in a lost community, while others are more for the church and building the kingdom, bringing light to darkness. Well, I hope that'll help. That's probably all the time we have for today. We'll come back and do a 4th now video to try to finish up. Thank you for joining us.